You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Thursday, December 20th, 2018. This week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we are journeying through Advent with the Jesse tree. We started the week by looking at Ruth, who was a foreigner, but still played a big part in God's story of salvation. She is the grandmother of King David. Next, we looked at the great King David, who was faithful to God, who defeated the giant Goliath, but maybe more importantly, taught us how to sing the praises of God through his beautiful work, the Psalms. Yesterday, we talked about what happened after David. He had many descendants that became kings, and not all of them were good kings. In fact, God had to send the prophet Elijah to go and demonstrate to them that their fake idol was not a God at all, and that he alone was God. Today, we are going to turn to a sad chapter in the history of the Israelite nation. Now, after Elijah, he worked to convert people's hearts. God sent many more prophets after Elijah. He sent the prophet Jeremiah and others to beg people to soften their hearts, to return to God, and to obey his commandments. But for the most part, they didn't listen. If you look back in the Bible, when God first gave them the 10 Commandments, which were an outline for how they were to worship him and treat each other, he said to them, "You are my people, and I will be with you and protect you if you keep my commandments." What's implied in here is that if you don't keep my commandments, then I can't protect you, and I can't claim you as my people. The people of Israel were warned, and yet they refused to change their ways, so God could no longer protect them. Eventually, another country, the country of Babylon, came and attacked the Israelites and conquered them. They no longer had God leading their armies, so they were weak and they were conquered. The Babylonians took over Jerusalem and exiled all of the people that lived there, forcing them to go back to Babylon and be their slaves. Now, this was a very sad, sad time. And it might be easy for us to think that God was a little bit mean. Why did he allow these things to happen? Well, it's a lesson that we need to remember and learn today. God is more than willing to work miracles, to do his work through us. But we need to let him. We need to let him use us. We can't just do anything we want to and expect God to still be there, to still miraculously make things happen. We need to allow him to do that. The Israelites did not allow God to save them from the Babylonians. They did not allow God to protect them. God wasn't allowed to be with them anymore. And so they were taken into slavery. And so, Sprouts, I want you to think about this today. Now, the chances of a foreign army conquering you and your family and taking you off to slavery are thankfully pretty slim. But there are other tragedies or other hardships that can come our way. Yes, we will all have suffering in our lives, but that suffering will be sweeter and easier and less of a burden if we stay with God, if we allow him to help us carry that burden, and if we are faithful to his commandments. So please think about that. Am I allowing God to help me? Am I allowing God to lead me? Am I leaving room for him to do his miracles in our life? That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God intended you to be. One final word to the grown-ups. Thank you so much for listening to the Catholic Sprouts podcast. I would like to invite you to join a special Facebook group just for those that listen to the Catholic Sprouts podcast. We will use this group to connect, to share resources around that week's theme, and simply celebrate raising future saints. To find the direct link to the Facebook group, simply check the notes for this podcast episode.